Welcome back to the channel. Von Braun here. With today's episodes, we're going to be talking about the cb175. I had a little issue out in the ride. He started to sputter a little bit with the gas on, and then it finally just died and left me stranded at a gas station. Did a couple of quick roadside tests to see what's going on with it. It had compression. I did check the fuel. I had tons of fuel in it. Popped off the float bowls and carburetors. Fuel was working as it should. Nothing was clogged. I did realize though that the headlight was not coming on, so I know that we have a charging issue and or a dead battery issue. So I loaded the truck. We brought it home. We're going to go ahead through this series and diagnose the issues and see what we come up with. So hang tight. We'll move on forward. Now I went ahead and took the seat off the bike to access the battery. Now you notice I said that the headlight I noticed was not turning on with the bike and with the key on. So I know we have an issue with the battery. So we'll go ahead and check the battery. Take your multimeter here, put it on volts DC because we're checking a battery. We will disconnect the negative, disconnect the positive, make sure nothing's going to touch, and we will check the voltage of the battery itself. Now the voltage of this battery, as you guys can see, is reading about 1.8 volts, 1.845, somewhere in there. It's kind of bouncing up there. But it is a 12 volt battery, so know that we have an issue with this battery if it's only reading 1.8 volts. Now your secondary question is why? Why does this battery only have 1.8 volts? What happened to the charging system? Why was this battery not being charged? So we will move on to check the regulator rectifier on this bike, and then we'll also check the stator and see what's going on and why this battery was not being charged to make the bike run properly. Now you can see here I've removed the battery out of the way just for ease of sight and accessibility. Right here is the rectifier. As a solid state rectifier that I got from a now defunct electronics store that used to sell really good electronic parts, and now they started selling cell phones and miscellaneous things and no longer in business. But that's besides the point. So this is the rectifier here. This is what takes the AC voltage, the alternating current, from your stator and changes it over to DC current and runs through the bike and charges your battery. Now obviously we did the battery test and it had very, very low voltage, so I have a feeling there's something going on with the regulator, the rectifier itself. So I will remove this, we will take it over to the bench and we will test it and we will see what's going on with it. Let's talk a quick second about rectifiers. When we test a rectifier, what we're actually testing on the rectifier is the diodes that are inside the rectifier. Now the diode obviously is a electronic mechanism that allows current flow to go one direction. It will not allow current flow to go backwards through it. It only allows it to go one way. So when we test the stator and we're checking the wires from the stator through the rectifier and we hook our meter leads up to a yellow wire and a positive, or a positive, backwards, trying to backfeed power through it. What we're trying to figure out is if the if the diode inside the rectifier is working or not. So what you're looking for when you connect your wire, your red lead to, say, a yellow wire, and your black lead to the red side of the rectifier, what you're looking for is a reading, a beep, an audible beep, and a reading of about 0.300 or 0.300 to 0.600 ohms. If you get one of those readings, then you're good. And you can check every wire like that. You can check all three yellow wires through your red lead and then check it out your battery or your red power through your black lead. Now if you reverse it and you send power from your red lead backwards and you try to read backwards through the diodes to the yellow wires from your stator, you should get no power at all, or no reading at all. No power, no reading, no nothing. These diodes send power up this way and out the wire. If you get power back feeding through, that means that your rectifier is bad. So that being said, let's go check a couple, and I'll show you on the bench what some good ones do and what some bad ones do. So over here at the bench, we're going to do a couple of bench tests on it, on the rectifiers. So this is the one that was in the bike, the cb175, that is questionable. This is just a rectifier, it's a solid state rectifier. So there's just diodes that go between the posts there and convert
AC energy over to DC for the battery. Now this one, which is the most common on just about every motorcycle, is a rectifier regulator. There's actually a voltage regulator built into this along with the rectifier. So let's check them real quick. Now using what we were talking about before off of the whiteboard there, if we take our leads and we're set up on our diode function and we check across our leads here, we'll put the black lead in the red power side. Okay, so you have a red and a black. The red's what's going to go to your battery, your black's what's going to go to ground. And I know that in the video I was saying from your yellow wires from your stator, but your yellow wires from your stator are actually going to plug into the 3 black wires here for your plug. So your yellow wires from your stator will be over here, they connect here, black wires will come down, feed into here, and go back out. So like I said, we're going to check the diodes inside of here, and this is a brand new one, so you're going to see what we get readings on. So black lead in with the red, or the power, and we're going to test each one of the leads coming across. So audible beep, we get 457. We'll try another one. Audible beep, 460. And the last wire, audible beep, 460. So we know that that top row of diodes is good. Now, like I said before, if we try to backfeed it, take the red power wire, stick it in the red side, and try to feed backwards through the diodes, we should get nothing. It should be open L or OL over here. We should get nothing through them. So 1 wire, nothing, 2 wires, nothing, 3rd wire, nothing. And you would check the same way for the black wire. Feed through, you should get no, we should get an open loop or no power feeding backwards through the diodes, and you should get a reading, like I said, between 0.300 and 0.600 ohms if the diodes are still good. Now this is the one in question that came out of the cb175. Now this being just a rectifier, what you're going to notice here is right about here, you're going to see there's a plus mark right on my finger. And then right here it says AC. So plus mark and AC. And if you notice, if you look at it, this one is actually turned 90 degrees. This is the battery out. So this is the red one that goes down to your battery, or your red wire to battery positive. The other 3 of these are going to be the wires from your stator. So 1, 2, and 3 come in. There's going to be diodes in between each one of these directing power to only go one way. So it'll go from here this way, it'll go here to this way, it'll go here to this way, and so on and so forth. It will not go from this 90-degree lead backwards. You shouldn't get no reading from here to here or here to here or anything. You only want power going, little camera shake there. You only want power going to this one here. So that being said, if I turn this real quick, this is the 90-degree one up on top. If I put power in from our red one here through the bottom and we go to our out, we get a reading, 473. It's pretty good. So if we check from here to here, we get a reading, 472. From here to here, we get a reading, 463. So we know that from here and getting over to here, that these diodes are all working properly in direction to get to this path here. Now if we check this one, the one to the right, to power here, look what we get. We get a constant audible beep. Okay, it's a constant, which means that this diode inside of here is actually bad. So if we try to feed it backwards, if we try to feed from the red positive, there's a positive, like I said, that was battery out. If we try to feed from here backwards to this diode, same thing, audible beep. And then we'll change it around again, I'll show you again. Audible beep. So this diode inside this rectifier is bad, okay? And just for giggles, I'll show you guys. So we tested this one in here. We'll test this one to 90. See, one quick audible beep. 454. You know, so the diodes here are all good and it's making a path this way, but this side here from the stator going through this rectifier was actually bad. Okay, now what ends up causing the bike to die over there is it lost a leg off of the stator, so it wasn't charging the battery properly. The bike then just drained all the power out of the battery and the bike died, hence why we got like 0.03 or whatever it was off the battery, and the battery was pretty much dead. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to install the good new regulator rectifier. I'm going to install a brand new battery, and then we will fire it up and we will make sure that everything is charging and everything is good. So we'll see you over at the bike.
Static testing or bench testing a stator is fairly straightforward and easy if you know how to test it and what to do. First off, you got to start by finding these stator wires and connector. Now your stator wire and or connector will be signified by having three usually yellow colored wires. It might possibly have a fourth different color wire attached for some other accessory that the manufacturer has put on there, but most of the time it's a 3 yellow wired connector that'll go down to the bottom of the engine or side of the engine, and it connects to your factory harness. Now what you'll want to do is you want to unplug your connector, and you're going to want to check your 3 wires in the back. Now to static or bench test a stator, we're going to do 2 tests. We're going to do a grounding test to make sure the stator is not grounded to the motor or the frame or anything internally, and then we're going to do a resistance test or an ohms test of the windings and make sure that those are within manufacturer's spec. Now to do a grounding test, go ahead and set your multimeter to your diode function or your audible beep function. That is, if you take your 2 leads and touch them together, you'll hear an audible beep. What you'll want to do is take one of your test leads, stick it in the back side of your connector where one of your yellow wires are, and touch your other lead to a ground somewhere on the motorcycle. I'm going to go ahead and use the carburetor manifold stud back here, and you see there's no audible beep. Now I'm going to do that same thing for all 3 wires. So that was the front one. We're going to do the back one right next to it to a ground, no audible beep. Test lead to the 3rd wire to a ground, no audible beep. So that tells me that the stator itself is not internally grounded and the grounding test is good. If you do not hear an audible beep, it is good. So we'll go ahead and check the windings or resistance of the stator itself. So set your multimeter to ohms reading, and we're going to do the same thing, but what we're going to do is we're going to test 1 to 2, 1 to 3, and then 2 to 3. So we want to test across the leads and see what the resistance is. So we'll test 1 lead to 1. I'll take the other lead and stick it into the 2nd wire, the one next to it. We're getting 1.9 ohms on the meter. So now we'll take it and we'll test across 1 to 3, which is the one back here. Getting 7. Now we're going to test 2 to 3. 1.5. Now what I said before on this one here, it was 0.7, not 7. I do apologize. There we go, 0.7. Okay. That tells me with this bike, this manufacturer's spec is the winding resistance needs to be 3.0 ohms or 3 ohms and under, and 0.5 ohms and higher. So anywhere between 0.5 ohms and 3 ohms is good. This stator falls within that parameter. This stator on a bench test is good.
You can see here that I have the new regulator rectifier installed. When we tested on the bench and tested it's good. It is mounted in place where the old rectifier used to be. The old rectifier used to be mounted here. Like I said, I put a regulator rectifier, upgraded to a regulator rectifier, put it up into here and mounted it and wired it up into there. Now this battery here is a new battery. Remember, the old battery had less than a volt in it. So I'll put you back in the holder here, and I can tell I have the multimeter here set on voltage DC, and like I said, this is a brand new battery. Measure across the terminals, we're getting 12.7 volts, so it's a brand new battery all hooked up. Now I'm going to go ahead and fire the bike up and check what the charging voltage is from the stator. Remember, we tested the stator tested good, and make sure that the regulator rectifier is working properly. Now this should be getting a charge of above 13.6 volts, so as long as we're getting a reading above 13.6 volts on our meter, then we know that we're doing good. So let me fire the bike up real quick, and then we'll run a meter across the leads and we'll see what our voltage is here. So whoop. I gotta turn the gas on. And we're knocking stuff over everywhere, aren't we? There we go. Need about 9 hands to do this. Alright, so as you guys can see, we're getting 14.4, somewhere around there. I'm idling right about 2 grand. I don't have the choke on the bike, so my hand's slightly on the throttle, giving a little bit of gas. But you can tell that the stator is working and the regulated rectifier is charging the battery and it is applying proper voltage to keep everything running. So I think we're good to go here. And the bike's a little warm, so this is idle. 13.8, roughly 13.7. Idle is right about 1100 or so on this bike. So us checking out the stator and the regulator rectifier, finding out the rectifier was bad and not applying proper charging voltage to the battery is what killed the bike. Now, what I will recommend, the whole point of the video for the most part, is a lot of people will say test the battery if the bike does die. They test the battery has no voltage, they put a new battery in, they go ride down the road, or they send their customer, whoever, off and down on their ride, and they come back a short while later because the battery's dead again. If you put a new battery in anything, whether it's a car or a bike or whatever, put the battery in, start the bike up, and check the voltage, and make sure that your regulator rectifier is working properly, and make sure that your stator is working properly to get the bike to charge and get the battery to charge, keep everything running copacetic. I hope you guys found these videos informative. Like I said, leave comments, subscribe to the videos. We got a bunch more coming up. Hope to keep you guys entertained for a while, and I hope you guys are enjoying the videos. Take care, until next time.